Okay, so this is the project overview for Project 1, Problem, Solution, Impact, Research Proposal. This is a 4-week project, I'm pretty sure. By completing this project, we will really be able to choose a solid research topic that will take us throughout the fall 2025 semester. It will help us really align our research goals toward looking to have transformative action with real world impacts. So this is something that's going to be repeated a lot, but the purpose of higher education, critical thinking, writing is to make an impact, to make transformative change, to be a leader, and I know I hate the term these days, but to be an influencer of surrounding topics that are meaningful to you. Along the way, we're really going to use this project to help ground us within our personal connection to the topic, our viewpoints, observations, experiences. It'll also give us a space to evaluate a little bit. What are my assumptions? What are my beliefs? Things like that. So really raising self-consciousness, raising self-awareness about why you've chosen this topic. Sorry if there's wind noise. Let me turn off my fan. Okay, my bad. It will also give us a place to plan and predict very casually. There's no real right or wrong answer to do this. Plan and predict what kinds of various perspectives we want to bring in during research. So we definitely want to find views that support our position. As critical thinkers, we need to find views that contradict our position so that we can sort of combat against that. But it's also really nice to find just alternate and different viewpoints. So maybe I care about I care about this topic a lot because of its impact on psychology, but maybe there are others out there who care about this topic a lot because of its impact on economy or cultural norms, something like that. So diverse perspectives. Maybe if I'm looking at an issue that impacts specific community groups, I want to see perspectives from within those groups. Maybe if I'm looking at a topic that has a lot of history to it, I want to have some older sources as well as some newer sources, things like that. And then we'll frame the rhetorical context. So this is a keyword that came up during our readings from week 1. But the rhetorical context is like that relationship between my purpose for doing this research and writing, the audience that I'm addressing, so the people whose minds I'm trying to change or whose actions I'm trying to inspire, along with the style and content that I feel will be best for me when I'm ready to produce my persuasive argument. So those are sort of the outcomes and the goals of this project. Along the way, we have some check-in and feedback dates. So a Saturday, September 6th, will be finishing the brainstorm journal. We're going to do a personal connection and viewpoint journal the following week. We're going to have a larger context and alternative viewpoint journal the following week. We're going to have some peer response activities along the way. So a time where you can see what are my classmates doing, get a little bit of feedback, encouragement, reminders, just so that you don't feel like you're doing this whole thing all by yourself. And then the final draft for the whole project is due September 27th on Saturday. Let's jump in. This is a hypothesis assignment. So if we want to, we can open the assignment in a new tab and use the immersive reader tool to hear this read out loud to us. Otherwise, you can scroll to the bottom. And open the hypothesis annotation tool. I'm just going to jump in to do this overview, and then I'll jump over and answer everybody's questions from the hypothesis. So first of all, looking at the purpose of the assignment. So this is our deep dive into research planning skills that we all already kind of have. But we're really taking the time in this class to think deeply and carefully about how we do our research and writing. And that means slowing it down, dilating it, so taking apart the pieces, blowing them up, and really looking at them one by one. So we've all done this before, where we chose a topic to write about. And maybe that took us a day, 15 minutes, something like that. But this is going to help us to really conscientiously choose our topic. We're going to learn how to represent our personal opinions and our personal viewpoints within larger context areas. So in this class, we will chant this over and over. You'll memorize it by the time you're out of here. Psychological, social, cultural, political, historical, aesthetic context areas, in order to express why our viewpoints are significant beyond just our own opinions. Really elevating. This is my opinion. I'm really elevating it to the status of an argument. We'll learn how to see our personal stance within the context of a larger conversation taking place amongst multiple diverse perspectives. And we'll learn how to plan on conducting research with clear attention to the rhetorical situation, or that relationship between purpose, audience, and rhetoric, or the style and content. Project 1 is all about this deep dive into the research planning process. By going through this slow and conscientious process, when you leave this class and you're in your other classes, writing term papers, taking written exams, you'll be able to assemble these skills back together into a unit that is much stronger and more effective for you to take with you long term. This project connects with some English C1001 learning objectives. Critically evaluating social, historical, cultural, psychological, and aesthetic contexts. We're just beginning that. We're going to have lessons. We're going to have a whole week where we dive just into that. But today we're already getting started. Drafting arguments with attention to audience, purpose, and context. Defining, recognizing, and using forms of critical reasoning. Specifically with this week, we're looking at distinguishing knowledge and belief from facts and judgments. And then the big one, reflect critically on your own thought processes to identify bias. And we don't have fallacies this time, but in a few weeks we'll learn fallacies. But today we're really, what is my thought process? What are my bias? And bias is okay in this instance, because that bias is the root of your assumptions, beliefs, and arguments. Those are the things that you're going to try to not always overcome unless your bias is harmful or toxic. Then you need to be really self-aware to shift that mindset. But if you just believe that this is right and this is wrong, this is what we should do, this is what we shouldn't do, we're going to use that to empower your writing. Looking at the assignment prompt. So this is, what are we supposed to do? Overall, the framework is problem, solution, impact. So we want to keep those in our mind as we're choosing a topic and thinking about how to explore it. Number 1, selecting a meaningful topic. It should feature a problem that you think should be solved, or it should feature a change, transformation that you would like to see initiated in society. And it can range from anything. Really, truly, anything you want will work. The purpose of the project is grounding yourself within your pre-existing views, values, bias, habits, and things like that. So really checking in with yourself before you ever do any research, checking in with your sort of core views, and then hypothesize about the research that you plan to do. So hypothesize about what kinds of sources you're going to be looking for. That will set you up as a guide and a framework for when we do that research. Since this is a personal project, we really want to feature the personal pronouns. So I think, in my experience, when this happened to me, we as a community are concerned about this. It impacts us. So using the first person pronouns is really important. And as some of us may have learned in the past, like never do that. We're doing it. That's what we do in higher education writing. When you do your research, you'll notice that professional writers write from their point of view, especially for our STEM students who are always used to writing objective lab reports. This can be a little bit uncomfortable, but welcome to English class, where your voice is the most important thing on the page. It's not an essay. It's a different kind of formatted document. So we're going to learn how to use MLA formatting to create a document that uses titles, subheadings, paragraphs, lists, and things like that. And when it's all finished, it will be 1,000 to 1,500 words. In order to reach that 1,000 to 1,500 words, we're going to break it down into 5 parts outlined here below. So number 1 is defining the topic, really getting clear, precise, and accurate about what it is that you want to research and explore. Of course, this is going to shift and shape shift a little bit as you refine your research, refine your argument. But as we begin, we want to arrive at a very clear and precise definition and focus. Oh, there's a disclaimer here too, that oftentimes we don't really know how to directly state this until after we've done the rest of the writing. So even though this appears the very first top thing in your paper, don't feel the pressure to begin with this. Later in the semester, we'll learn my writing philosophy, which I often say last things first. So we do a lot of writing and thinking, and then we come up with our thesis, and then we come up with our topic sentence. So sometimes we don't know what the first thing is until the later in our thinking process. What you're going to produce is a complex sentence that introduces your topic along with some analysis about how that's going to impact a specific context. So using precise language to critique what is this problem and how is it harming some community or some aspect of like psychology, society, aesthetics, things like that. Or using precise and clear language to say, what change do I want to bring about, and how will that help and uplift certain communities or context areas. Next, looking at context lenses, and we will have lessons for this. This isn't something that we already know about today, so don't feel concerned. But in order to really guide our analysis, we're going to learn about several context lenses. So when that time comes, we're going to learn about like 11 or 12. Each student is only just going to choose 2 or 3. It really stands out to them, that really impacts the topic that they want to explore. So we're really tailoring and personalizing our critical thinking education so that each student kind of walks away with a toolbox of things that serves them, instead of trying to memorize everything, because that's impossible. So for this part of the project, you will list in a subheading, context lens, and then list out the main elements that this lens helps you to focus on and helps you to think about, along with a couple of deep thinking questions that lens helps you to ask. And those things are going to guide your analysis comments when it comes to making your argument, when it comes to doing your research. It'll be sort of guided by this critical thinking. Next, we're going to share our personal connection to the topic, and this is just to ensure that everybody is choosing a topic that is authentic and meaningful for them in order to practice their critical thinking experiences. This is going to ground you in the why. So why am I choosing to research this topic? Most people choose a topic that has a deeply felt impact on their daily lived experience. Some people choose topics that are connected to their major or their career choice. Some people choose topics that are connected to problems that they notice in society and culture. And you'll see a few previous topics when it comes to the brainstorming discussion. Also, grounding in your personal connection gives you a route into authority and expertise. So you're bringing, if you're 19 years old, you're bringing, 15 or so years of experience with this idea into this topic with you, even if it's just 1 or 2 years of experience, if it's a kind of new thing that you've recently realized. Like you maybe watched a documentary last year and it impacted you and now you want to explore that topic. So you'll compose 1 or 2 narrative paragraphs. So these are paragraphs that tell your story about your experiences, your community's experiences, telling memories, observations, thoughts that you've had, worries that keep you up at night, and thinking about how those personal experiences impact your concern for this topic, how those things make you concerned about the problem or inspire you to push for these transformations. So there's reminders to bring in supporting details, how to make analysis commentary, and then using transition words. And we will learn these things. We will refresh these things before the final project, but there's reminders along the way. Next is the most new and unusual part of the project is to anticipate a conversation. In higher education, we think about research and writing as us joining into and participating in a discussion that is already happening. So as we're coming into our adulthood education, we're realizing that these professional writers, thinkers, inventors, they're having these deep conversations. They're trying to solve these problems. They're trying to bring about these changes. So we're sort of like putting on our big kid shoes, so to speak, and really approaching those conversations with the sobriety and intellect of adult educated people. So at this point in time, it's just creative. We're hypothesizing, we're imagining. There's no right or wrong way to do this, but we're trying to think, who might be talking about this topic? So are we going to be looking at things that are like doctors are talking about it, scientists maybe, politicians? Is this something that artists are talking about? Is this an issue that concerns parents and children? Is this an issue that concerns different career fields? Like who might be discussing this topic? What might they be saying? We hope that we're going to find a lot of people who agree with our viewpoints, but we also need to be looking for people who disagree with our viewpoints. We need to anticipate the other side of the argument so that we can effectively persuade our eventual audience about why our side is superior. So just imagining a whole variety of different voices that might be involved in the conversation. So we're going to compose first of all, a balance between your viewpoint and their viewpoint. So I say this, I imagine they will say that. So first of all, grounding in why I know this is a problem. So kind of building upon, I did this narrative about why I'm connected to this topic. And now I'm getting a little more hard hitting. I'm trying to say, like, this is definitely a problem that is not tolerable. It needs to change. We're not going to put up with it anymore. Or What a inspiring change that we can make, this new way of approaching something, this new way of thinking, living, experiencing. Wouldn't it be wonderful if we can see this spread throughout society? Whatever it could be. It could be like doom and gloom, or it can be like uplifting and celebratory. But it should be persuasive. Already trying to convince your readers, which is myself, the other people in the class, that this is a good idea. This is a good research topic. So why is it important? Supporting your viewpoint by ideas about who is most harmed by these problems, who's going to be helped the most by these solutions, using analysis commentary to really explore some of the unspoken values, beliefs, assumptions, and we will learn some vocabulary and concepts for how to talk about that stuff. And then the disclaimer also that your bias is okay. Just be clear about it. Just be like, I realize that other people think differently. However, I'm right. So just embracing your bias and just making it transparent. And then 1 to 2 more paragraphs. So far by this point in the project, we have kind of like a thesis, like a sentence that really says, this is the thing I want to research, and this is why. And then we have a list of context lenses along with questions. Next, we have a paragraph or 2 where you tell your story. This is like the human part. Can be a little bit more vulnerable because you're sharing memories, experiences, things that you've thought about, really delving into your personal deep connection. So this is a little bit more sensitive. And then we're getting into the conversation. So we're saying strongly, this is why I think that this viewpoint is right. This is why I think that this research project is important. I think that when we get started, other people are going to have these kinds of ideas. When I do my research, I want to look for these voices. I want to look for these perspectives because I think that their voice has a valuable impact in this topic. And that's very vague. You don't need to do any research to make this happen. We will have an assignment where we can use AI tools to sort of foreshadow and predict and help us. But you can just imagine, based on the knowledge and experience that you have as an adult person, who might be discussing these topics. And then finally, the very end is a plan for when this research is all said and done. How do you think that you want to address your chosen audience? Critical and persuasive writing means paying close attention to the rhetoric. It means paying close attention to that relationship between purpose, audience, and the wider context of your argument. So it can be really helpful to have a plan to motivate and push through to the end of the semester and say, I really see myself as creating a speech, or like I'm really inspired by the TED Talk format. Maybe you want to stick with the academic essay, like MLA format. Maybe you want to do like a video essay if that's something that you consume in your free time. Maybe you want to produce something like that. So thinking a little bit. So an expository paragraph is just explaining, an explanatory explanation paragraph where you're sort of describing your purpose. So why, what is my purpose in writing my eventual argument? And it's going to be a little repetitive because it's going to be to bring about change. That's the key to getting the A. Make sure you're focusing on transformation and action-oriented effects. So that's your purpose. So to bring about some kind of change, you're going to be writing it to a specific community. So it can be helpful to think in your mind, am I writing this to people who I'm more or less like scolding them about the wrongdoing that they're doing? Or am I writing this to an audience where I'm trying to uplift and empower them to seek change? So who do I want to talk to? kind of a thing. And then considering the style, the tone, the attitude. So do you want to be super academic and advanced, high vocabulary, super structured and everything like that? Is that going to serve you in your genuine interest in this topic? Or do you need to be addressing maybe a blog page where the general reader can connect with what you're saying? Maybe something in a different kind of media would help. Like a video media, slide presentations, things like that. So really considering why you want to do this project, who you want to do this for, and how you're going to approach them. And all of this will help us have a clear format through the research, through the argument. It's your roadmap to the rest of the semester. I'm not going to go through the grading components below, but you're integrating concepts and vocabulary from the course, so from lessons, readings, and discussions, is going to account for about 40% of your overall score. So it is important to take notes during lessons, readings, and discussions. Going back to your assignments, like the small assignments along the way, to see like what was I being asked to do there, and making sure you're continuing to do those things into your final draft. Paragraph structuring. So we'll have a little bit of review here about, topic sentences, supporting details and analysis commentary, transitional elements, things like that. And then style and voice. So how long is it? Did you do the formatting correctly? Did you use the first person voice? Did you use complete sentences? The stuff like that. Did I do my math correctly? 20 plus 40 is 60, plus 40 again is 100. Yeah, okay. So that's the grade breakdown. Please use the hypothesis along the way. Ask questions in the course Q&A. I really look forward to talking about this more with you guys and seeing how your ideas take shape.